Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet again another Dropped Frames episode. We are joined by the dude this week. I got to size up your camera. You're a little bit low right now. No, this is
I'm
on
go
me.
down here.
No, what? Okay, is this a slouch stream? Or are we all just
This is
gonna...
good.
All right, everyone just slouch.
I have a friend that streams like this, and it's amazing.
If I stream
like
like
this.
this, the chat would just be like, "Is streamers back okay?" or,
Yeah,
or
streamers back prefers this.
Or is posture check just not?
Posture check.
Yeah,
Posture check.
yeah. It's
You should have a posture bot along with like H2O bot or whatever the heck that is.
Is there a posture bot? I know there's an H2O
There's got to
bot.
be a posture bot somewhere out there.
Have they not combined forces yet?
And then you got to have a pasta bot. Have you had spaghetti lately?
That's a good.
I like this position.
Barry,
I like this
that
position because people can see where I keep my extra snacks.
I just
Right? I
hide
got
that.
a little pouch like a kangaroo.
Yeah, I try to hide that as best as possible. The beard just gets longer as the days go by. That's all that
Dude,
is.
okay, so we're all bearded on this show. Last time I shaved, I was watching a highlight video from my stream, and it was shortly after I had shaved.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't weigh any less, but man, do I look like I do with a beard. Holy fuck.
Yeah. No, that's why beards
That
are
shit,
so
like-
popular, is because
Yeah.
Men have grown lazy. Ultimately.
Face shapers.
Yeah, man.
In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways.
When was the last time you were clean shaven, Max?
Actually, 9 months ago to almost the day, because I did it for my wife when my daughter was born.
Oh.
Because my wife really likes me clean shaven, and I just can't stand it. So yeah, I decided to shave on the day. Like I shaved in the hospital. So, and I could not wait to get some fuzz back on the face, man. It was a problem.
Yeah. Wait, did you just use
Scared
like
the chat.
Did you get a razor from the hospital? So it's just like a one blade, like throwaway
Oh
razor?
hell no!
Okay. I thought
like some
okay.
ye old 1800 stuff.
You know, something free that they would supply you and then charge you like $100
And then
for.
charge you.
Yeah. The hospital way, at least in America. Anyways, let's not talk about healthcare in the States. That's not a good topic. Mr. Max, how you been? What's been going on? You're talking before the show. This is like your annual visit to the Drop Frames crew.
Yeah, the last time we were chatting it up was for the huge ass releases of 2020, and it was like a big talking point was Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is probably one of my most anticipated games ever.
Yeah.
And funny enough, like Resident Evil, which is going to be a big talking point today, is easily one of the most anticipated games as well. So the fact that Village was harking back to, RE4, which in my opinion is one of the greatest games of all time, like top 5 easy,
Sure.
was really interesting. And their take on it was really cool. So I'm looking forward to talking with you guys about that. But I'm also looking forward to chatting with you all about my current game of the year, which is Returnal.
Yeah, I heard you said that, and I'm curious as to the specifics on that. I finished it finally.
I'm looking forward to talking about that as well.
Yeah, we talked about it kind of briefly last week, but I hadn't finished it at the time. And Max, our other guest, Max, Gas Mexican, hadn't played it at all, and Zeke had not played it at all. So we didn't spend too much time on it, but we'll get to news. We'll talk Returnal. We'll talk Village. I want to talk to you about Guilty Gear. We got kind of a lot of stuff going on. It's a busy week for some reason in the random month of May here in video games.
It's getting even crazier in June. Like I call it June apocalypse because everything's dropping in like the same week.
Yeah. It's the first week, right? Like there's Ratchet and Clank, there's Guilty Gear, there's
Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, there's the Intergrade stuff.
Someone say it.
Oh, I know you're super excited for Burning Crusade launch, right? For WoW Classic. That's the first week of June. Let's go.
Chivalry 2, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
is Ship 2 actually coming out? Like there was a beta I was seeing people playing, right?
June 8th.
Yeah.
Oh,
June
yeah,
8th
dude.
is
Gotcha.
that's full release. Yeah. Wow. Fuck. That is a stacked week. Now that I didn't even know that. And then
Necromunda hired gun on June 1st.
I think June 10th is when E3 starts. So we go
Yes,
from like
and the E3 is in the same week. All that stuff is happening. It is fucking ridiculous. It's just like don't sleep, only stream.
Yeah. And then we'll get to the end of June and it'll be like nothing. And July will probably be like pretty dead.
Catch up.
Yeah.
It's going to be our catch up time.
It'll be
All
the
those
catch-up
games
month.
we weren't able to play during the first couple weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the fact that that's all stacked on E3 is going to be a lot, especially a digital E3, right? Where you're going to be able to co-stream everything a little bit more easier, I guess, than you have in the past. So a lot of stuff. Wait, when does Mario Golf come out? Is that also June?
I think that's also around the same time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that like crazy because that's a huge multiplayer game, or at least a local one.
Wait. New
June
World is
25th.
coming out then too?
I think that is correct.
Like Amazon Games New World?
Well, no, that releases August 31st, but they might be doing a preview.
Okay. Oh no, hey, that's fine. Dude, I would have felt terrible for them if they were releasing around then. Okay.
Yeah, I
Is
think
that what
there's a
it's
preview.
Like, you're gonna try to dip your toe in that release schedule after being away for 9 months? That would have been terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Wait, when is Biomutant the 5th of June then? Or is that later this
No,
month?
Biomutant's into this month.
Yeah.
Biomutant's I think 25th of this month.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
Biomutant, and also it's not there's no solid date yet, but the beta's like this weekend. There's also Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis.
Yep.
And-
I saw that
wait.
as well.
And didn't they push back the Ashes of Creation beta into early June?
Yes. No, they pushed it into like mid-June because
Mid-June.
Blizzard did what Blizzard always does and put their launch of Burning Crusade literally on the same week that Ashes of Creation was going to launch their alpha.
Of course.
Oh, it's mid-July now. Okay, sorry, mid-July is when that's coming out. Yeah. So we've got some. June seems like it's going to be a pretty crazy month for sure.
Oh, and then later Scarlet Nexus.
Yeah, I saw that got like is that a release or an open? What was that? There's a demo
I don't know
out on
exactly the time.
Xbox or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna be checking that one out. Supposedly it's like a better, more tuned Code Vein.
Yeah.
So I liked Code Vein. I just thought that it was a little uninspired. So I'm hoping this is gonna be like the inspired version. We'll
Yeah.
see.
And then when E3 is happening, Bandai Namco's going to come out on stage, and Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin are like, Elden Ring
It's out.
is available now.
No.
Excuse
It was
me.
there.
How dare you?
Oh God.
It's just mean.
What do you know, Max? Are you confirming? Are you the new confirmation figurehead now?
Yes,
Is it passed on
I'm
from
here
Keeley?
to announce to the entire Drop Frames audience, as well as the rest of the world, that I am the Elden Ring.
Okay.
I just keep getting more Elden and more Elden every single day. It is it's a vicious ring.
It's vicious.
That's
cycle.
my joke. Please laugh.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's great. It'll also be there at E3 2021. You heard it here first. Max confirmed it. Obviously, he made the trailer. Is what I heard. I don't know if you guys
Yes.
heard that, but I think Max just said he made the trailer for Elden Ring. So
Yes.
tell everyone. Let them know. Let's get to some actual news here, because there actually was a decent amount. It's more of a topic at the start, going along with this news that yesterday. Also, before we do this, how do you pronounce the French game producer slash developer company based out of Montreal? Well, how do you pronounce their name?
The one?
Yes, they make Just Dance, Assassin's Creed, the developers behind all of those games. How do you pronounce it?
Hold on.
Ubisoft.
Max, how do you pronounce it?
Ubisoft.
Zeke?
Ubisoft.
Zeke is correct.
Okay.
What?
I've
Okay, I
learned
heard about
all of
that.
this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is the thing where under a Tom Clancy game,
Yes.
they put a Ubisoft production.
Yes, we had a
And
very
the-
long
and the
conversation about this.
Internet got set on fire because they're like, you put "an" in front of a Valve.
That
And they were
was
like,
me.
no. And I was actually one of those people too.
Yep.
And they were like, no, because the way we pronounce it is not with the Valve version. So it is what did they say? It was Ubi? Is that what they said?
It's Ubisoft.
YOU. Yeah, it's a Ubisoft production.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which I think this whole thing was just a way to get people to actually pronounce their fucking company's name right for the first time in like 20 years, because
Could be.
everyone calls
Wait
it
a minute,
something
wait a
else.
minute, wait a minute. What do I
I
win?
called it Ubisoft. That's what I've always called it
What do you win?
in real life.
What do I win? Wasn't that a contest?
I could put like a sticker on your nameplate here on the show if you would like a sticker.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll work on that. I'll work on the sticker.
You got to get a mask of the president of Ubisoft, and it just goes over Zeke's face
Yeah.
for the rest of the stream.
Oh God. We'll just get Eve's face on Zeke's. Yeah, great. Yeah, so now anything that's made out of Ubisoft is now a Ubisoft original. What's the what's the slogan or what's the thing?
Oh yeah, it's a Ubisoft original.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because like I think they debuted it on a Tom Clancy game, so it's like Tom Clancy's so and so a Ubisoft original, and it's just like
they just added to the name.
Yeah. It's like a Spike Lee
It
joint.
sounds like
except it's
That
for a
sounds
Ubisoft
weirdly like
original.
what it sounds like what Disney does with their stuff, where Disney's Aladdin, like, and then to avoid the fact that they don't want people to like rip off like characters that are technically in like free, not a free market,
Public
but
domain.
exactly like public domain stuff. So they put like Disney's Beauty and the Beast, Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like it really reminds me of that.
Yeah, it's a little silly.
My first taste of that was, remember the real Ghostbusters was the one that you wanted to watch, because the Ghostbusters was actually like a cartoon, a comic from like way back, and it had like a gorilla in it. And when I tuned into that for the first time, I was really upset.
What? The real Ghostbusters was the one that was like the fully animated one with all the characters from the movie,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, from
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's
movie,
what I
from-
remember.
yeah, the Ghostbusters, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm scrambling for this star. We'll get it here in just a sec. We'll have the big reveal. I downloaded a transparent PNG, and all it was just checkerboards in the back. It wasn't actually.
Don't you love that? Don't you just
Like,
want to nuke whatever website
Yeah.
that is?
Yeah, I've actually DMCA'd that website for just existing. I need some content that they apparently stole. Yeah, it's just real dumb.
Like, I don't even understand the point. Like, you already did the work. Why are you trolling me?
Exactly. It's real fucked up. It's real fucked up. Anyways, to go along with this Ubisoft news, they came out yesterday, and who was it at the company that said this? It was it was just okay. I'll just read the news. It says the company provided an update on its game development strategy during its full year earnings call on Tuesday, when it said it intends to be less reliant on AAA releases as part of its overall product mix. The quote was, "In line with the evolution of our high-quality lineup that is increasingly diverse, we're moving on from our prior commitment regarding releasing 3 to 4 premium AAAs per year," said Ubisoft Chief Financial Officer Frederic Duguet, I guess is how you pronounce that. Duguet. I think that's Duguet. But essentially this means they're just going to do a lot of free-to-play games and less like AAA giant productions. I think they're still going to do that, but it's kind of a sign of the times in a lot of ways. But also, I think a lot of people read that and they're like, well, what about my single player games, right? Like what's going on with that? So it was an interesting point when Jeff Keighley tweeted yesterday. I thought it was pretty thought-provoking in terms of just a conversation. He said, video games are evolving and changing. In June, 26% of EA's revenue came from premium game sales. Premium game sales being anything like a $50 or $60 game. The rest was from live service, DLC, mobile, and microtransactions. And he said Ubisoft is shifting away from 3 to 4 premium AAA titles a year and plans to launch a, quote, high-end free-to-play game. What are your thoughts? What are y'all's thoughts? Like, as we go into this, is this where indies start to shine again, or continue to shine in a lot of ways with these like full-fledged single player experiences? Does PlayStation just like take up the flag and continue doing what they're doing with AAA single
Which
player
percentage did they say again? It was 25%?
26% of EA's entire revenue came from premium game sales. So the FIFA card packs or player packs, like that type of stuff is what's
That's
making
accounting
bank.
for a lot of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it seems like that's not as much like a nail in the coffin for for single player games as much as it's like a shift of focus. Like maybe that could be a big change for single player games in the future, but single player games already have a ton of all those things you just listed. Like except like mobile versions, they already have tons of microtransactions and like digital content that's added to them eventually, which probably accounts for those things.
Right.
But like I think their current plans going forward, I wouldn't assume that they would want to potentially risk like 25% revenue which is pretty significant. Like that's still like a quarter of what your earnings are. To like change and just, oh, we're just going to go to all the other things that are working instead of complementing it. I don't know. It seems like that to me. It's like it probably would be more cementing the fact that, okay, we need to keep this revenue stream going.
So it's going to exist.
Stabilize with something else.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
exist regardless, even if their focus kind of goes elsewhere, right? Like it'll
Yeah,
it'll
like
always
why
be
would you?
there.
Why would you risk 25% of your revenue? You know?
Yeah, yeah. What do you, I mean, Co, we always talk about, and I think you've always been the one to kind of lead the charge with the point of, you know, you look at like Genshin Impact, or even if you go look at what Ubisoft has done with Assassin's Creed, where they've thrown all of this MTX, kind of like what Max just mentioned, in terms of like the leveling MTX, the gear MTX, the whatever MTX. Is this kind of the tipping point that that you were warning everyone back in the day for you?
To some degree. I mean, it's the kind of thing where, you know, at the end of the day, a company generally starts with passion and ends with money. So a lot of times a company will start, you know, really caring about the product, caring about the people that are using the product. But the more successful a company gets, the more it will attract people that simply don't care about that and simply care about the bottom line of the company. And eventually you get to the point where you have a board, and the only reason they're there is to get as much profit as they can out of the company. So as we move forward and we see these larger pools and demographics open up that weren't really fully exploited in the past to get that much revenue out, as we see those pools start to open and expand, we're going to see those same people jump in feet first to take advantage of that. So it's the kind of thing where, like, that's where the future is heading, especially when you start looking at the metrics like we did, what was it, last couple shows, when we were looking at how, you know, the differences between mobile gaming profit and regular profit. I mean, there are people who are in these major companies looking at those numbers and drooling. And then they're looking back at the board of their existing company going, why aren't we doing this? Why is this not what we're doing? Do you not see how much more money all this other stuff makes?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an inevitable process that a lot of these companies are going to go through. And really, the larger the company, the more susceptible they are to that kind of thinking.
Yeah. Do you think that we start to get, I'm not even sure, like, I guess the idea of like kind of what Hades did, right? Like they did this like early access period, but they added to the game over time. Do you think we start to see big game companies go that route where they push a game out and it's like the part one, right? It's the Walking Dead effect where it's like, all right, here's the opening of the game. We'll have a component where you can do other stuff to it, or play the game continually. But the story aspect is like, here's first 5 hours. We're going to
good news for you.
This. Yeah.
Anthem. You're basically talking about a live service.
Yeah.
And they tried that with Anthem and it failed miserably. And then they went back and we saw Dragon Age 4 was going to be that. And EA was kind of like, maybe we shouldn't do this again. So the good news is that sometimes there is a limit, and sometimes there's even a limit to the general population. Anthem was a good example of that limit. You have to release with more meat than that. You have to. Doesn't matter how solid your base is or how fun the gameplay is. If the meat isn't there, your people are going to rebel. When fortunately we just saw it happen with Outriders, where it's the kind of thing where instead of them being able to really focus on getting the game going and off the ground, they ran into some tech issues, and all of a sudden, like, you know, well, Outriders may be a little bit more than just that. But the point is it's the kind of thing where you thankfully we've seen this not work. Hopefully we'll continue to see it not work. But I think that a lot of companies are hopefully taking steps in the right direction to deliver a more complete product and stay away from that kind of thing. We are, of course, going to still see it. But you know, we'll kind of have to see where it goes. And funny enough, now that I'm thinking about it, Outriders is probably a good example of the opposite, because they did make it a big point to say, we are not a live service. We are giving you a full game. And the fact that they even had to do that just shows you how much the environment was angled against that live service style of thinking. Unfortunately, again, it fell apart for a myriad of other reasons. But yeah, it's a good direction for things to be moving. And now we have games like Resident Evil and everything, where it's kind of like there's barely any microtransactions and a really kind of full experience right out of the box.
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, that's the kind of thing we want to be seeing from these companies. That's when the gamer kind of wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
The funny thing, you mentioned it with like episodic story stuff, and you largely think of like the Destiny likes, when it comes to that.
Right.
Square's already doing that with Final Fantasy VII Remake's big add-on games. Like they announced that we're completely remaking all of the classic Final Fantasy VII games on mobile, but they're all going to come out episodically. And we still don't know a lot of like what the heck is going on with it, but it quite literally was the answer that everyone was sort of complaining about, that we don't want a new Final Fantasy VII. We wanted a remake of the classic games, like a better looking version of the classic games. And they're like, okay, so here's that. Here's literally that.
It's best of both worlds.
It's coming out on mobile, and it's going to come out in segments over the next, like, God knows how long, like every few months. So, and to sort of clarify what you were saying about Hades, I think Hades is kind of a super unique situation because that's a company that aggressively is trying to not get absorbed by the money, which I assume now that they've had such a huge success is going to have an impact on what's going to happen going forward with them. But at the same time, like everything about that game's development was to keep the team small, to keep the product focused, to not involve investors and things like that as much as possible, to keep it as indie as possible, regardless of how big they got.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like it's a situation where it's almost an inevitability for like every big game or every indie company, if you have a big game that eventually happens, unless you just don't want to expand, right? Unless you're like in like an In-N-Out burger situation and you could expand, but we just choose not to. Like we're okay with whatever success we got. Then it's a stance that I think will be very welcome and very rewarded in the future by devs that come up with big IPs like Hades.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you think this backfires for Ubisoft at all? Do you think the gamers unite and rebel, or does it not matter because things like Genshin Impact exist where obviously the money is there to be spent, and obviously that style of game is wildly successful, and it's wildly successful for these companies and some of the other games that they're already doing, the MTX and the other aspects of
it's conditioning.
Small, yeah. I guess
the audience is already the EA and the Ubisoft audience, in all honesty, has already been conditioned. Like the people that aren't really hyper aware of what's going on, they've been conditioned for the past 10 years. So now they're just going to be doing what appears to their general fan base is like the same thing, but just potentially things that they might like even more, which is a constantly expanding and updated game, but is free to play, but you don't realize you're spending more money over time on the free to play thing. I think in that situation, it actually makes a lot of their audience even happy.
Yeah, you might not be wrong about that. In terms of you played this, I think definitely more than I did. That Immortal game that Ubisoft put out, was that like a full featured game that had small price? Like, what was the price structure of that game? Was it buy it for $60 and you got everything, or was it buy it? Do you remember how that worked?
Which one are we talking? Immortals?
Yeah, the like
brain
the Assassin's Creed adjacent game. Once you look it up, I think you'll Phoenix Rising. Sorry, that's the name of it. The one that got renamed.
Phoenix Rising.
Yeah.
Oh yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sorry. Phoenix Rising. Yes. I think they just went a relatively standard DLC approach. They had a cosmetic system already kind of plugged in. I have not done the DLC yet, but from what I understand, it was a relatively straightforward DLC approach where each DLC was adding actual content to the game. They added like another god pantheon, another story, and then like an entire isometric camera change adventure kind of thing. So I have not played them, but from what I've heard, they were relatively, worthwhile DLC expansions.
Gotcha. Okay. I just wondered.
And then all the stuff that you could buy was cosmetic, from what I understood as well, outside of like a mount and a couple things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of what they've done in the majority of their other AAA titles, at least specifically Assassin's Creed. I haven't really played any other Ubisoft title.
And just to mention something about what you said earlier, Ubisoft isn't going anywhere because they're the same as World of Warcraft, where it's like they could only kind of kill themselves. But even with that, they have so many established franchises now that they have. I mean, there's Twitch streamers that have Assassin's Creed tattoos on their body. It's the kind of thing where they have so much skin in the game, so to speak, in terms of well-known, well-liked franchises that it's kind of a Mario type of thing, where they could release some pretty drastically terrible things, and there would still be people playing them just because it's a franchise they really like.
True.
Now, I haven't said anything in a little bit. So I'm just going to throw in some color. It's fucking dumb they spelled Phoenix like that. Can I just say that? That's
Phoenix.
I mean, look at the company's name, right? Like it's.
Well, I mean, there's.
They don't even know how to pronounce their own
like,
name, let alone these other ones.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Also, Zeke.
Can we just forget the word Phoenix? Like in video games, can we just like say that word is played out and we're done with it?
I did. That's why I just called it Immortals, but that didn't stick.
What you got to do is you got to connect the F, and it's now Phoenix Rising.
Phoenix Rising. There you go.
The best name.
I wish you were across from me. I would high five you. I totally high five you for that one.
Zeke, you could give him a head pat or something.
I found your star, Zeke. It took some time. I had to chrome it myself, Zeke, but here you go. Your stars arrived.
Yay!
That's for you.
Is that a Carl's Jr. star? Oh no.
Oh, I hope.
Oh
not.
God.
I hope not.
DMCA.
No,
No,
it's not.
No.
It's not. It's fine.
It just says great job on it. That's all.
Yeah.
I don't think it says Carl's.
Hey.
It does look kind of like the Carl's Jr. thing though. So lawyers, just send me a DM. You don't need to DMCA me. Just
I'm gonna
send me
win
the
this
first
show.
two acronyms.
What was it? Was it best first to 3 stars wins the show?
I think that's what we said in the contract.
All right,
on
early
episode 1.
lead.
Yeah. You're already ahead.
Finally, after however many years.
What else is there? What do you guys happen to know? Because I don't off the top of my head. They announced that there's some Division stuff coming, but that they're expanding it and it's free to play Division and also mobile game aspects of the Division. I think
Well, this is just lining up directly with what we just heard, right?
Yeah. It says Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland is being led by Red Storm Entertainment and is described as a standalone experience that's released on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. No details were revealed on a separate mobile game or on the separate mobile game. So
here's the funny thing. It's like I think a lot of even like the Division fan base, if not the fan bases of a lot of these games here, that there's like a mobile accompaniment version of their game coming along and like maybe a free to play version. And it's kind of like, oh God, that means, oh no, it kind of is like this soured attitude. I would sacrifice something of high value to get that kind of support for a fighting game, man. I would yes, develop a mobile version of the fighting game that's easy to play and gives you access to unlock things in the main game. Yes, please give us like expansions and things that allow us to go forward. Like when we talk about all this crazy stuff that like these big games are getting, even like a tiny percentage of that, I would give so much for a fighting game to kind of get that.
Yeah,
and it's funny how we're mentioning like all this extra stuff is providing revenue for these companies. When in fact, because I'm the fighting game guy, I always relate things back to like my favorite genre.
Sure.
Is Street Fighter V launched in a pretty rough position, and it didn't have a lot of the content people were looking for, and they literally did the exact same thing that's happening to like what you guys are explaining with Outriders and stuff like that in Anthem. It launched bare bones as holy hell, and it took them like honestly 3 to 4 years of development to get the game in a state where people kind of like it, and now it's in an extremely good state where everyone's like, this game's great. It took that long, though, to get to that point. But the funny thing is, the thing that kept it along, and this is what was kind of being echoed and what everyone heard, and you were saying, was costume DLC. The online microtransactions, essentially, the revenue that was coming from DLC online was keeping the game afloat while they essentially were expanding and making it what it needed to be. So it's weird how even though that happened to that game and it technically worked out because the game bombed at the start and now it's doing relatively well, that not a lot of other companies tend to do the same stuff because it's relatively like, it's kind of harmless. Like you get a free costume every once in a while, but if you want like, 30 Chun-Li costumes and they're actually selling, forget it, go ahead.
Yeah. What how does the like fighting game, I guess the fighting game community and maybe like everyone else that plays the game, those are two separate communities in some way, but how are people responding to like, MTX within Street Fighter V? Is it generally like kind of like what you just said, where everyone's like, great, this is awesome, like support the game type deal?
Well, the costume stuff, which from what I understand is really what kept them afloat. And Street Fighter V usually had, whenever it had an expansion, like a purchasable expansion. They have a really weird system where they have like an in-game currency that is like fight money that you can essentially play the game, get rewarded for fight money, but only like a specific amount to buy new characters if you wanted. So theoretically, and I never did this just because I didn't want to grind fight money, you could buy just the core game itself and unlock all the characters that were available in the future, like the 2016 version. I'm not too sure how exactly that worked out, because to me, it's like, oh, screw that. I'm just buying the expansion. But at the same time, like I know, and I've heard for years from the inside, like as far as how the game was actually supported, the thing that really kept it afloat to even, get to the point that it's at was costume DLC. And for the sake of people that are playing the game, I mean, that has to be doing well. It's a joke, right? It's an absolute meme that, Chun-Li and Ryu, Chun-Li especially, has like 30 costumes or something like that. And the only reason that exists is because people are eating it up. People are just buying every single one.
Yeah. Yeah. I had not even really considered that component when it comes to like fighting games, because in a lot of ways there is some parallels to like the MOBA world, right? When it comes to like skins and whatnot for all the characters.
Sure.
And like I think the MOBA world, like I understand what that perception is somewhat from a community side of things. Like when a skin comes out, people are like, oh, this is great, I'm going to buy it. Right. So it sounds like that's kind of somewhat true as well when it comes to the fighting game world. What about someone like, we'll push the fighting game conversation a little bit more. Is everyone ready for whatever Riot's doing? Are they amped? Like, is that not necessarily the holy grail, but is that like where everyone's eyes are right now, just to see what Riot is doing with their thing? Like where is that?
Well,
what is the community thought on everything?
I think a larger like hardcore, so everyone's we're talking about Riot's game, like potentially League of Fighters, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that's going to be called. The biggest awareness we have of it is that it is going to be going into like a beta phase of some kind, but not public. Like they are testing the game. So everyone, like almost everyone in the FGC heard about this, and they're like, hey, I have this wonderful background. Let me go play your game. So it seemed like it was causing a big hubbub, and a lot of people were super into it. However, I think I heard something that when they were looking for people for this beta, they weren't looking for established or essentially proficient fighting game players. They're looking for people that aren't great at fighting games.
Sure.
So clearly, I mean, they're trying to expand and make the game accessible in some ways to make sure that, okay, the notes we're trying to hit, they're being hit. But at the same time, even the devs are like, thank you for your interest in a beta, right? Or in this beta, but we're not really looking for like applications or anything like that. And even mentioning we're not going to have anything really to show until next year.
Wait, we're talking about League of Legends Valorant Riot?
Yeah. They've been
they're making
Project
a League of
L
Legends
or whatever
fighting game.
No. I just mean that it sounds super strange that they would have like League of Legends, like the height of competition for MOBAs. Then they have Valorant, which is like becoming another standard for competitive FPS. And then they would go like a more casual route with the fighting game, which is hyper competitive anyway.
I honestly think it's kind of
there's two sides of that
good
coin.
Thing that the first tests are just like anybody, right? Just not just like established players. Like, is the game fun? Like, do the characters move and feel okay? Like things like that, because these devs have a history, and it's not even a big dev team. They've made one game before, and that team was relatively small. It was a game called Rising Thunder, and it was essentially a free-to-play, or it is technically free-to-play now, like robot fighting game that came out in like 2016.
Right.
So the biggest thing these devs are really known for is the fact that they created GGPO, aka rollback netcode, the thing we'll probably be talking about eventually with Guilty Gear Strive, which allows you to play fighting games online with no input delay, or an extremely minimal amount of input delay for your entire experience. And it's revolutionary, and it's a thing that's been around since the mid 2000s, right? It's been around forever. Those guys that created that are making League of Fighters. So everyone's like, oh man, the netcode guys are on this. It's going to be amazing. But at the same time, it's like, I've been hearing about this game for ever since the Rising Thunder crew got bought out by Riot. And that was like in late 2016, early 2017. So they've been working on this game for a while.
Years.
And
Yeah.
I've heard it change from it being a team game to a one-on-one game to back to a team game to something else. Like it seemingly has gone through many iterations, and a lot of the people that I was aware that were working on it have stopped working on it, and they're not even working on the project anymore. And all we've seen is like probably less than 100 frames of what the game actually looks like, you know?
Huh.
So it still has a long way to go, and they're just testing it at a very early phase right now, like super alpha. So I don't know. To me, it's like it's hard for me to get excited about this because I just want it to eventually come out. Like I hope it comes out. I know a lot of the dudes that are working on that game, and I think they can make something completely awesome. But Riot is like a very unique kind of developer to work for, and
Sure.
it will be a game that sort of takes everyone by storm. I just hope it's fun, man. I hope it's not like characters have 4 attacks and they have 2 special moves. Enjoy.
And 1 ultimate.
And then they have an ult.
Now listen. Some of the best times fighting game style that I've had in the last decade was with dive kick that has 2 buttons. Like, so don't knock it.
It's true. But dive kick has a crazy amount of technical depth when you actually boil it down, because dive kick ended up being like how many characters that are crazy and different.
It's true.
So
I think I watched
don't know.
Like a video of that and how like actually competitive it is.
Yes.
And how like in depth you can get with just 2 buttons. And I remember playing that with my brother and my dad. Like my dad, who never plays any video games, whooped my ass because we both like, we're just trying to press
Just
the
2
buttons and outplay the other one. But
funny history story. Dive kick was actually invented and designed by a developer who is a huge fighting game aficionado turned fighting game developer that also ended up, after dive kick, making Killer Instinct.
Right.
He was a lead character designer on how the characters play on KI, and dude's name is Adam Keats, and he pretty much fabricated through like scripting. I remember testing a couple of his characters early on in KI Season 2's dev cycle because I was working on story mode of the game, and he was like, you change the way Jago, the main character, works through scripting to make Shadow Jago. And it was great. It was like, man, this is awesome. So he clearly like understood how to make something, really fun and have a lot of options just through like a limited amount of stuff that you can technically have on your plate. So that's what I honestly hope for League of Fighters. I hope the game is simple enough to be accessible, but also has an interesting amount of crazy stuff that they can do.
Yeah. I
think we're due for another one.
Another
dive kick with more like just like the new meme characters. Like I would be excited to see like who actually gets in there. Like
streamer dive kick.
Yeah. That's
like streamer YouTuber. Like
what is Iron Galaxy even working on?
I'd love to see that.
What are they?
I don't know, man. The
they
fact
just
that Iron
hired
Galaxy
some other...
isn't working on another Killer Instinct is what hurts my soul.
Yeah, like we've had Dave Lang on the show before. I don't know what they're working on, because they also just hired, I think, the former community manager from Bungie. I think Deej just got hired there like this past
Go
week.
to their front page, and the first thing you see is Killer Instinct Season 2 and 3, and
yep,
that's about it.
KI is they Iron Galaxy has been historically a really big port house. Like they'll do things that you don't realize that they do. Like they port a version of Borderlands 3 to this specific system, and you don't really, their name isn't like slattered over the front of it. But in terms of like an actual like full game development that they have made, that was KI Season 2 and beyond. So I think it's their big like proudest like, hey, we didn't like, we're not the programming and technical wizards that are able to put just your thing on everything. We also do our own original stuff too. And that was their creation in tandem with Microsoft,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I need to, we should get Dave on, see what the fuck they're doing.
Yes. If I'm not here, talk about KI in some way, please.
Yeah. Yeah. They've been hiring a lot. I just don't know what the fuck they're making. So maybe that'll come out here pretty soon. Whatever it is they're making. What else jumping back in kind of the grand news world? Zeke, you got lucky with your PS5 because that shortage is expected to last all the way into 2022.
Yeah, man.
Where was the quote? So they said, I don't think demand is calming down this year. And even if we secure a lot more devices and produce many more units of the PlayStation 5 next year, our supply wouldn't be able to catch up with the demand. Hiroki Totoki is the one that said that. So, yeah, I guess it's just going to be harder.
Is that how long it's going to take for them to redesign the system to not have the things that are completely missing?
I feel like you have to. My understanding of the rare precious metals is that you just have to have them. Like there's no way to get around that in a lot of ways. Because even like the car industry right now is just assembly lines are like finishing cars and not able to put the chipsets into the car. And so they're just putting them off to the side and like they're not able to ship out cars. The automotive industry is being hit by that as well. Just like the tech industry in terms of GPUs and all that stuff is also being hit. It'll continue to be a problem, I think, for a couple of, apparently into 2022, at least for the PS5, right? Like it's only going to get worse for a lot of that.
And dude, like I just to let you know, like how much of a struggle it was. Like I have, moderate amount of reach as far as like having my voice heard by saying things on this show or on Twitter or on my own stream or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time. Like it took months and months and months of like, I was asking my like rep company. I was asking like anybody. Eventually a couple people were like, I got a line on a PS5 and I'm like, okay. And it just took like some back and forth. Like I had to like pull all the clout that I had to get it. And Jesus, it's rough out there.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
Kind of crazy. We always talk about the PS5s when we talk about this stuff. I had no idea, but Xbox is in the exact same boat.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that the Series X's and stuff were like at least obtainable, but it looks like they are also in the exact same boat due to all the shortages and stuff.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. It's all over the place.
Yeah, I think I saw, I don't know who it was on Twitter, but someone said they bought a Tesla, paid for it in full in January, and they're not getting it till sometime this summer / maybe early fall because of all the chip shortages. So it seems like it's just affecting a whole bunch of people. It sucks that most of that has to do with tech, right? So
that's my new trophy.
Here's an interesting.
Yeah, you got the Eve trophy.
He's got the Eves. Here's an interesting thought I had when I was playing Returnal. Because there's a lot of people on the channel like, I would love to play this game. I can't.
Yep.
I'd love to actually pay the weirdly adequate, like almost $600 to $700 it would take to play something like this. I can't. And it leads me to like this process where it's like, if people just can't get your product, like number one, you have to start thinking of the first party things that are only available on that product, of what else do we do with them? Because now it's not an issue of the demand isn't high enough, for this new console that's expensive. No, the problem is everybody wants it and you just can't produce this. So what happens to your first party games where not enough people can technically suffice what you need to meet sales wise because you just don't have enough systems available? And that's where I think a lot of Sony's efforts are ramping around to PC versions of their games. Because especially with what's going on right now, that seems like that might be more of an appropriate time to do this than ever. And that might be why that's actually happening, because they were sort of assuming that this production thing might cause a big problem with PS5 exclusive games. So what do we do with our exclusives if we can't technically sell more just because we can't get more systems out, PC versions?
Yeah, it's great.
Not only that, but they are not capitalizing on the releases. They're not capitalizing on the hype. They are literally losing so much money
They're
in
bottlenecked.
terms of sales, in terms of promotion that they're spending. Every dollar they spend towards all the PR and stuff is becoming less effective. Like if you add up all of the combined effects of the fact that these companies are unable to sell, like, up to what people want to buy, essentially.
Yeah.
Like that shortage is the shortage that every single other project associated with it is held up by. It's wild, man. Like, it's crazy to think how much better Returnal would be doing. We're all going to be looking at sales numbers, and all the big companies are going to be looking at sales numbers, and they're going to be looking at Returnal, and it's going to be like, could that have sold 10% higher, 20, 30, 40, 50% higher if everyone who wanted to buy it could have bought
Could
it?
have an actual PS5, yeah.
I mean, it must be so frustrating as the developers to be like, to pour their heart and souls into these projects, and then just know that it's like their metrics are going to be completely hamstrung because of the lack of availability of the console.
Also, and what is the answer to that whole problem? PC versions.
Yeah. It also makes you wonder,
for a lot of people. We also have to remember there's a lot of people that don't have PCs that would have a PS5. So it's like those people are just stuck. They're just stuck. PC version would help, but I mean, there's still going to be a massive amount of people that just would have bought it that can't.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like,
phone versions. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Phone versions.
Oh God, let's not go that direction, please.
It makes me wonder if that game was priced the way it was because of how many people were able to actually buy it, and so they were like, we got to recoup our investment in a lot of ways. With that said, I will kind of contradict my statement. Someone in chat made a great point. This was in April. So like April 28th. So 2 weeks ago. The PlayStation 5 has sold 7.8 million units in its first fiscal year on sale, ending March 31st, 2021. It sold more than the PS4 did, with 7.6 million units in the same period during its launch. So like, it sold more than a PS4 did, right? It's an interesting stat to think about, like how much more.
Imagine how much more it would have sold than a PS4 if people could actually just go out and get one.
Totally. Yeah.
I wonder if that's the trick. So exactly like what you were saying, Max, about PC versions, I wonder if the trick is whenever your console is having shortages, you always have a version of the game playable in the previous gen. Even if it's not as pretty, even if it's not as good, you just assume that everything you release, keep it the same price, and that way you're not losing money, but it's just anyone buys the PS5 version, they get a version that runs on the PS4. You want the PS4 version, you buy the PS5 version. And that way it's like, everyone can get a PS4 right now. That's not the problem.
So, I mean, for the exclusive games, though, that is so much extra work because a lot of these native PlayStation 5 titles, like, really are designed around crazy SSD utility and the architecture of the system.
Yeah.
To the point where if you wanted to just get Demon Souls or Returnal, because there's not many exclusives on PS5, funny enough, that are actually PS5 exclusive. If you wanted a Demon Souls / Returnal on PlayStation 4 or PS4 Pro, you'd probably have to delay the game like way more to accompany it, you know?
Well, and also, like,
it's kind of funny.
To redesign the way the game works.
I take back everything I just said because I just realized that's what Cyberpunk tried to do.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that, but I would think you would have taken that into consideration.
The knife was slowly going into his back. He's like, ow, ow. Oh yeah.
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 So I guess the only way that what I'm saying could work is if there was a fundamental decision from the beginning to dual platform the project.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, then at that point you're pipelining it from the very inception.
I think right now, or as soon as they saw this like on the horizon, this is where they're like, okay, so here's the thing. If we're only going to have 8 million units of the system out, then we're not going to sell 8 million copies of the game just because not everyone's going to buy the game. We need to do something about this because we are planning on selling this much considering the budget, and we literally cannot. So what do we do? Like, we have to, so we need a PS4 version, and a PS4 Pro version. Got to make sure it's previous gen accessible. Got to make a PC version, right? This is where a lot of those decisions are happening right now for the sake of PlayStation 5 exclusives. And I think we're not going to see it until a bit down the line, you know?
Yeah. I was curious. I'm trying to see if like numbers are out there for the amount of units Returnal sold. But that stuff's all digital, so it's a little bit rough to track.
I think the only thing that popped up is that it was popping up like number 1 in sales for the month.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting.
It's one of the only PlayStation 5 exclusives there is, so of course it is.
Also, I would not be surprised if they're playing that close to the chest. Because the last thing they probably want to do is like put a big spotlight on the fact that their flagship titles are not selling well, not because they aren't liked or well received, but because it goes back to what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So that's not very surprising that we can't find like exact numbers there. I wonder if we'd be surprised if we did.
Yeah,
there's a funny thing that I want to bring up too when we eventually get into like the Returnal discussion.
Yeah,
and it's like interesting issues that Returnal has, if not this situation we're talking about right now, that is completely solved by an Xbox. Like there's some things related to Returnal and these situations that are pissing people off.
Sure, yeah.
And right now where it's like Xbox is like, yeah, our library, our family, games are on everything. Like you could just do it this thing here. It's right there. Go ahead. But once again, Sony is sort of backed into this corner where it's like, crap.
We didn't do that thing.
Crap. So I would love, once we get into the Returnal conversation, I think it's really funny how Xbox solves like so many problems and they already have.
Yeah, they definitely kind of saw the writing on the wall in a lot of ways with that stuff. A little bit more news. We'll probably take a break, then we'll come back and jump into the Returnal discussion. Zeke, we could bring you into the discussion here. The Yakuza series is out there making two big things. The first one, that the Yakuza series will remain a turn-based RPG series going forward, just like 7 was. So they're getting away from, the old and bringing in more of the new, which as someone who played 7 and only has played 0 in terms of the older games, I much preferred 7. It definitely kept me along and around in the game longer. For you guys as two longtime fans of the game, who has played almost every single aspect of that game, is that fine? Like, are you guys okay with that? Totally on board?
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Easy. That's easy.
Cool, here's the thing, though. Like, what's great is they've introduced an entire new cast of characters in a turn-based environment. So they kind of rebooted in a lot of ways that turn-based environment is now with those characters in that world. Also, now that it's been a little bit later, and Zeke, I don't know if you beat that dungeon that we talked about, but hopefully you saw that end scene because it was incredible with our boy Kiryu. Anyway, moving on. What's also great is, and I'm assuming you're going to talk about the second big announcement, JP?
Yeah. The second bit of news leads into the idea that Judgment is going to Lost Judgment, I should say, will take kind of that old school Yakuza experience, and that's where that's going, into that.
Exactly. They basically kind of passed the mantle between the two. So now we have like the old, very well established, very repeated mantra of the normal Yakuza franchise is now going this new interesting direction. And they now have this other little section that is kind of taking up that mantle of, action combat. It has its own cast of characters. So it's kind of a something for everyone kind of deal. Not only that, though, the Lost Judgment thing, I was very hesitant to watch it due to spoilers, but I ended up watching it anyway. It's looking cool. A lot of our favorite cast members are back for the US version. I mean, the story looks interesting and fun. Like, apparently, I didn't watch the gameplay stuff, but there's a ton of mini games and stuff in the new one as well. So, yeah, man, it's a good time to be a Ryu Ga Gotoku fan for sure.
Yeah,
I think it would be very strange if they didn't continue the turn-based thing that they started, because it's in the mind of Kasuga, right? The main character of like Dragon 7 or Yakuza 7, whatever you want to call it. It wouldn't be right. Like, I don't think if they switched up the mechanics of how he sees the world and how he views battles and so to speak. And also, I think that's absolutely correct. Judgment is going to be there for you if you need like a little bit of the taste of the older style or the
want that
previous style. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, like, I loved all the Yakuza games, but the fighting was only a means for me to try out all the heat moves, and like I've said this before, like all the special finishers that Kiryu had. That's all I really ever cared about when it came to the fighting portions. What kept me interested in the Yakuza games was the story and the relationships that got built and that kind of stuff. But with this new style, like I jive way more with turn-based anyway. So like everything you do is a heat move, and the story is still like very, very solid. So yeah, I'm super excited for what comes, especially hearing that it's gonna remain JRPG style.
Yeah. Max,
Also, there's so much more range with the new Yakuza cast. Like the amount that they can kind of grow and change. And it took a solid 6 to 7 games to tell Kiryu's story, and I'm glad they stuck with it that long. But it's so clear from Like a Dragon that they've really learned like how to tell a story, and now that they have characters that have this much kind of broader palette to work with, it's definitely something special.
Yeah, for sure. Max, where are you at in the Yakuza fandom? Are you right there on top with these two? Because trust me, I've had about probably 60 hours of Yakuza talk crammed in my brain, and I haven't played the game. So
really, wow,
I've heard a lot about it. Not to dismiss anything you're about to say,
I have friends. I have a chat room. I have so many influencing tales that try to get me to play these games, and I've tried.
Yeah,
and I've seen them played in front of me, and it seems nice, but I just can't get into it. Like, to me, Yakuza always felt like the natural evolution of what Shenmue was kind of supposed to be. It's a more interesting version of like Shenmue. What I really know about the latest Yakuza is that they went RPG style instead of like brawler style. Like, they've always been kind of like very elaborate versions of Virtua Fighter meets a beat 'em up. So what they did with the latest one, since it was an RPG, is that they stuck Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown on the main menu if you wanted to have a game where you could still beat things up with like really top tier Sega character design and combat, even though the game is like 13, 14 years old. They put the full game into the game, like right at the start. And I thought that was like interesting because it had been in the game in the past, but instead of like, oh, we know maybe you missed some combat stuff, here you go. It's like right here.
Yeah. I think I actually played that. I had like an hour-long demo on the Series X, and I think I spent like 20 minutes playing Virtual Fighter.
Yeah. GF5 is some primo like Sega combat stuff, because everything in Yakuza is just sort of like embedded into what Sega established since like 1994 with Virtua Fighter. Like, a lot of that stuff is very similar.
Yeah. Speaking on Lost Judgment real quick, was for Ko and Zeke, was Judgment like, was it a darker game in terms of context and tone and like subject matter? Because that trailer, I don't know if you guys watched it with audio, but like, it seemed kind of intense. Or is that just the Yakuza stuff where it's like, this is intense, and then later you're going to be wearing a diaper, right? Like,
Judgment is still silly, and it's got that Ryuga Gotoku style of kind of like irony and jokes every so often. But Judgment is a little bit more somber. You play an investigator who is a really smart dude. So it's you, instead of kind of like being the iconic lawbreaker of being the Yakuza head guy, you're basically playing like, you know, a detective. You're trying to, you know, you work in with like lawyers, and it's a different feel. It's a different feel.
Okay.
So I would say that it's a different perspective on the same world. So you still have a lot of that ridiculous stuff that happens, but the lens at which you view it is a little bit more realistic in terms of like law and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, I especially after watching the Lost Judgment thing, like, dude, that there was definitely a couple intense parts in that for sure.
Yeah, it's dark as hell.
And yeah, it's pretty different. It's pretty different, but at the same time, it has a lot of that root similarity.
Yeah.
You know you're playing a Yakuza style game like instantly and throughout it, but it's a fun journey.
Yeah, sure. I should have.
I'm with Reginald. Did you say that, Reggie? I hope there's more detective stuff and super sleuthing in the new Judgment. I do too. I really do. I love that aspect of it. And I'm full agreement. I hope there's more. You know, I love puzzles. I love mysteries. One there to be more shit to figure out.
Yeah. I should have thrown this in with the Ubisoft news at the beginning, but I thought this game was canceled. So they have once again delayed Skull and Bones. And I don't like.
Yo, we saw that at like what, E3 2018?
It might have been 17, but it's been a while, right?
It's been a long time. Like way before Sea of Thieves.
Yes.
Was even like we saw any gameplay of that. I remember seeing Skull and Bones.
And part of me wonders how much they like looked at Sea of Thieves and they're like, they took our game.
Okay, this sucks.
They fucking took our game. Like,
redo the whole thing.
we got to go back to the drawing board. That's literally our game, and look at their water tech. It's so much better than ours. We got to just delay it. So yeah.
Because it did have a more like hyper realistic Assassin's Creed visual look to it, right?
yeah.
At least that's what I remember.
Yeah, totally. It was not like the, I guess cartoony is the word that I'll apply here. It didn't have that like animated feel. Yeah,
just say Fortnite look.
There you go. That's actually a very apt way to describe it. Didn't have that Fortnite feel that Sea of Thieves
That's
does.
on the chances of it coming back and looking like that.
You're right. Yeah.
More accessible.
Well, hey, I can't think of a better way to throw into the free-to-play world of releasing Skull and Bones, having it be free to play, and then putting a bunch of skins in there for your ships.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We were talking about this on my channel yesterday when the Skull and Bones stuff came out. First of all, real quick, little note. This came out 11 hours ago. Yakuza 7, the most successful title in the franchise worldwide.
I saw that. Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Damn.
Pretty cool.
So well.
So no wonder they're keeping it turn-based, huh? But on that note, with Skull and Bones, we were talking about this, I think today or yesterday. If Skull and Bones comes out and it's not something really, really good, like that is going to be a hilarious situation. On the flip side, if Skull and Bones comes out and it's actually like that Black Flag revival that a lot of people thought when they first saw it, like that could be really cool, especially if they are able to put it at a good price point and it's something fun to play. But it's like if they've delayed it this much and this long, and then they release something that's half-assed, which very well could happen. I mean, we don't know why the project's been troubled. Oh man, that is going to be a black eye for sure, no question.
Yeah.
That'll be super unfortunate.
They put out a bunch of like statements around it. Who was the one saying this? I think it might have been the same guy that said the stuff about free to play. The quote is, "Our teams at Ubisoft Singapore are fully committed to launching the game as well as supporting it for many years to come. While our game won't be present at Ubisoft Forward on September 10th. They already put a date out for a September. Okay. We're currently working on plans to present Skull and Bones sometime in the future. It'll be worth the wait." So they're not going to show this thing 4 months from now. They're already getting out there and saying that, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, so Skull and Bones fans, just wait a little bit longer, maybe. It's now, the sub headline of this, the open world pirate game has now been delayed in 4 consecutive years. That's a lot.
It's gonna be fine.
What's the most delayed game of all time?
Star Citizen.
That's still not out.
Duke Nukem Forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's
wasn't
playable.
Star Citizen like kickstarted in 2013 or some shit?
Yeah, but it's playable. I think Duke Nukem Forever is probably
Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah,
yep. That one is a big one.
That was 12 years, right?
Yeah, and that worked out great for that one. I mean, that just came out.
Half-Life 3. Come on, chat.
Wait, what was that, Co?
Pong 2.
Everyone's waiting for Pong 2.
Everyone's waiting for Pong 2. Beta
Everyone.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be huge.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be huge.
Still waiting.
Yeah.
People don't realize it already came out. It was called Pongs.
Oh god damn it!
I see the dad jokes are on point. This is good.
Yeah,
this is
good. The dude
you need like a little cue for like laughter and clapping.
I googled Pong 2, and there's the pong-2.com. So there is a Pong 2.
Oh, who knew?
I don't know if it's licensed or anything. I really don't know if I don't know if that's a public domain kind of a name since it's so old or whatever. I don't know if anybody owns the word Pong.
Who owns that? Who owns the Pong IP? It's probably still owned, right?
Atari?
Yeah, Atari still owns it. Yeah.
Okay.
To Pong to live.
Oh, we're going the Fast and the Furious route?
Pongoning.
God. That's it. There is some Resident Evil news, but we'll tie that in when we talk about Resident Evil. Is there anything else the three of you have seen that you want to bring up in terms of just general news over the past week?
Other than Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, like having a beta this week along with Guilty Gear, which we're going to talk about as well. They're like at the exact same time. I can't say anything better about New Genesis. I played the game in Japanese, and it was a blast. Like the true sequel to Phantasy Star Online. And because PSO2 feels like a much different game. PSO2 New Genesis is like it feels like a different game, and it's just really fun. It's a very enjoyable game. So I don't know, it really scratches that itch as an old PSO fan. And the bit that I got to play, because there was already a very limited amount of what was available, because I'm not a huge fan of the art style, but man, it's pretty too. It's a good looking game.
Oh wow, this does look a lot better.
I wish, and this is like the footage from when it was first shown off. It looks a lot better than this now. So it's one of those games that's a bitrate hell, right? That's my biggest argument against it, is that on stream it takes a dive because there's so much plants and foliage and moving parts when you're smacking the crap out of a 30-foot tall monster with 18 different people in the zone. It's like, okay, this becomes a bit of a screen barf situation on a stream, but when you're actually playing it, it looks amazing.
So what was the other Phantasy Star that came out recently? Was that just an HD, like an upscale re-release? Like, what was that? I say recently, but in the past year, maybe past
PSO2. That was actually just Phantasy Star Online 2 when Xbox announced it.
Yeah.
And it was just the game being released outside of Asian territories. That's all it was.
Okay.
That's the one Strippin was playing, right?
Yeah, Strippin was playing that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a good game, but it clearly is this is clearly like a 10-year-old game. Like it's got a lot of elements that are fun, but man, the menus and the systems on systems, it's clearly a game that has been updated for its player base for like 8+ years of success, because it was Sega's moneymaker. Like PSO2, I think, makes more money for Sega than almost anything, right? And that's the only reason why this is still called PSO2, because they don't want to alienate their fan base. It's the whole reason why this game and PSO2 are like complementing each other instead of being completely different packages. They don't want to split they don't want to split their audience.
See,
it's so much more work. Like they have to make like gear and accessories and visual accompaniment items. All these things that people got in PSO2 have to work in New Genesis as well, and in a completely new graphics engine. Like it's way more work than they probably should have ever had to put into this. But if it ends up working at launch, that's huge, man. This game is fun too. Probably some of the most like fun like action game character classes and stuff. I think you're looking at Gunner right now. It's a blast. Like even using casters and stuff like that, it's crazy like action based, and you're always like flipping and dipping and doing all this combat stuff, and there's more reasons to go for one more thing, and you have to risk that to do this. It's like, this is great. This is just.
Can you just fly in the game?
So you can like hover and float and air dash, and there's a limited amount of mobility that you can do, but you get things like double jump. Some classes can do a lot more mobility than others. But there's like glides and things you can do. There's not direct flying. So, but if you're a better player, you'll figure out how to get access to those things because of all the mechanics each class has.
It looks like he's just hovering around this guy.
Yeah, his skills are
when you ground and he's in the air for like another 30 seconds.
Yeah, when you shoot, the whole gimmick is to keep a combo up. So it's like you literally have this like Matrix style character where if you just keep shooting and you hit your target, you can keep shooting and keep shooting and keep shooting. So the whole gimmick is that you transition from one attack to the next and then flip and then dip and then shoot and then flip and then dip and then do this and have different that's the whole gimmick of it, is that you have to keep your combo gauge really high.
That's cool.
So this one, this class looks like they're constantly just floating and shooting 0G.
When does this actually like fully release?
June.
Oh, okay.
It's terrible.
Because I'm looking at this, I'm like, ooh, this actually looks kind of.
This looks pretty fun, to be honest.
This looks pretty fun, right? Maybe
it probably will be like June 9th. They haven't actually announced it, but I'm not even surprised if it's it's available June 8th. Like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
It's like going to compete with Ratchet and Clank, Guilty Gear, and Final Fantasy VII. Oh, good.
Yeah. I'll skip ahead here, see if I don't know if they're only playing this class. Looks like it is, yeah. They're finding a different monster. This is some beta footage, I think GameSpot.
Can't get over how much that reminds me of Equilibrium.
Yeah, with the gun kata. A little bit.
I kind of love it.
Just call it the gun kata.
Yeah.
I know, right?
There's also like a tinge of like Monster Hunter in terms of.
A little bit.
I've not played
the way
Phantasy
the
Star Online,
weapon.
so.
that's that I had played Monster Hunter first before jumping into PSO2. Because PSO2 had really not New Genesis has some really interesting weapons and character classes. I'm like, this is really cool. It just looks super dated, and it feels dated, but it's got a lot of cool ideas. I'm like, man, it'd be great if it would like expand upon this, and they literally announced New Genesis later. But that was my biggest comparison, is that the weapons in Monster Hunter are practically like characters. They do so many crazy unique things per weapon. And that's sort of what the classes are in this one. But it's so much easier and more accessible in a way that doesn't remove what makes the previous stuff fun. In fact, seemingly gives almost more things that you can do, because they allow a job system that works a bit different, with like a complementing job and a main job. And instead of a limited amount of things, they're just like, you just get everything now. So a lot of people that are used to PSO2 are probably going to be disappointed inherently, but there's clearly like, this is a beta. You have a limited amount of stuff you can do, at least in this part of the game. And it's clearly going to expand and get really crazy really fast.
Huh.
So just, and for the record, the full version is what's coming out in early June, right?
Yeah, it is.
So for somebody who's
actually an international launch.
Oh,
okay.
So
this would probably be a pretty good time if like the last thing I played was like Dreamcast ESO. So this would probably be a good time to like check it out. We're going to do it.
This is absolutely 100%. If you enjoyed Dreamcast PSO in any way, that was the first online game for me. This is the game. Like, this feels like a true sequel to Phantasy Star Online. PSO2 felt like something very different, and it always had been. Phantasy Star Universe, PSO2, they tried to be sequels to PSO, but they always just felt a little off. And to me, this game and its exploration and the way the world is and the way the enemies are, it feels like a true, like, dang, we got a real sequel to Phantasy Star Online in like 2021. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they talking all about what you do, like in the end game? Like, there's no PvP in this game, right?
There's no PvP. I don't think. I don't know, like, especially what they're going to be going with for like true endgame stuff. But I don't think that's a big part of PSO 2, even like the previous game. So you'd have to ask some like crazy hardcore PSO 2 fans. But I think a lot of it is just like big community grinds and stuff like that, giant raids and things like that.
Cool. Interesting. Very cool.
How many classes are there?
A healthy amount at the start. There was like, I can't remember exactly, but there was like 6 to 8, and then you could combine between each one. Like, you can have a sword techer, or you could have a gunslinger. Anything. Like, you can mix these things up.
Is this like $60 buy once, or is it free to play? Like
free to play.
Oh, okay. Is it subscription based?
There's 10 classes. Oh, okay.
Yeah, 10 sounds about right. So they do the exact same thing that they've been doing with PSO2. There's like season passes and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be like, I've gotten emails about this, and it went as far as like Phantasy Star. Oh, this is just the re-release. I don't need to like. Maybe I won't respond to that style of email. This is the first time I've actually seen footage of it, and now I'm like,
and
where was that email?
when I was introduced to it from like when I tried PSO2, because I tried PSO2, no kidding, in 2012 when it was in its beta form.
Yeah.
Just to get used to it. What it eventually turned into, and I had to get like a big primer from my chat of like, how do I play this game? What should I be doing? Because it's so many contrived systems on systems. It's so confusing. This is like a reset of what it is. But the one thing that everyone sort of mentioned about it is that the MTX in this game is actually pretty decent. Like, the way they handle it, and they don't really go nutty with a lot of the stuff that they could be potentially doing. I don't know, from a lot the perspective that I got from my audience, at least with PSO2, is that the way they actually handle their season passes, their cosmetics, all that kind of stuff, they do a pretty good job with this game. And there's an insane amount of crossovers that PSO2 has like gone into between other games and franchises and things like that. So I don't know. It seems fairly cool.
Cool. You going to be playing it this weekend? Are you going to? Well, what's your time divide between this and Guilty Gear? What are you doing?
I'm time dividing, man. I'm going to have to split my body into multiple parts, and we'll figure it out.
Twitch has that technology now. I've heard.
Yes.
It's part of how it works. Yeah, cool. Thanks for talking about that. I had no idea that this was like a brand new game. I thought it was just the re-release or the HD remake or the thing that Strippin played a year ago. I thought that was what this was.
It's PSO2 by name only. By all accounts, it's really Phantasy Star Online 3.
Yeah. Huh. Cool. Anything else news-wise? you guys want to bring up? Any other stuff to share? I think I got most of the like big stuff. Like I said, apart
you
from
got
Resident
most
Evil.
of it.
Okay. Zeke, anything in your neck of the woods? Bring up?
Oh well.
Not really. Nope. Just you want to know like news with me personally?
No. Just news that you have heard.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I get my second vaccination shot tomorrow. That's
ooh,
news.
nice.
Congrats.
Ooh, nice.
Congrats.
The only other small thing, Control fans might like this. Remedy's, and this is from the Reddit games that I follow. Remedy's AAA game project with EG is soon moving into full production, and the second smaller scale game continues in full production. A lot of people think that the AAA game that they're going to be putting into production might be Alan Wake 2.
3. No.
2.
I thought there was more than 2 Alan Wakes.
There's Alan Wake, and then there's the DLCs. I think. And then
I thought there was an Alan Wake 2 as well.
Oh, was there like an Alan Wake : something?
It's American Nightmare. Yes. There's
Okay.
Alan Wake American Nightmare, but I don't think there's been an actual 2.
Okay. God damn it.
Dude, they have the perfect opportunity for Alan Wake and the 2 L's to just be 2. Al 2
They're not Capcom.
Lawyers.
They're not good. No. I think that
I think Alan Wake only has one.
No. There will be 2 L's. It's a re-envisioning.
No, there will be.
It's Barry Allen. It's a Flash crossover. That's what they're doing.
It's the reboot.
Yeah, it's the reboot. They got a lot of money. It's that Epic money now. Well, let's take our break. We'll use this as a good bookend. We'll come back. We still got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Resident Evil 8, Returnal, Guilty Gear, whatever else everyone else has been playing. We'll try to cram all that into the back half of the show. We'll see how we do right after this. We'll be right back. Give us about 5 or 6 minutes here with more Drop Frames. We'll see you then.